Hey guys, Jesus here. Something shot me. I'm about to die. Like, this happened as I was setting up, but hey, we're reacting to a Matpat video. So it's about how Disney is dying or whatever, and I feel like he's gonna make a bunch of points that I personally agree with. I really don't want to die here, so we're gonna try to not do that, but we'll hit play. Okay.
Disney is
Okay.
dying.
We're
And
good.
It's easy to see why.
We are
Between
okay.
the back-to-back
We are
flops,
A-okay,
burning money
guys.
to supply Disney Plus, and films
True.
that just miss the mark, Disney is in
True.
trouble. But
They
today,
are.
I've got the solution and the answer that the House of Mouse is looking for.
Make good
right
movies.
here on YouTube.
Okay, maybe he'll say something that I don't necessarily know about.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film.
Okay, to be serious
Theory,
though,
the show that
I've actually been planning to make a very similar video to what I think this is gonna be, so I am a little bit triggered. I am a wee bit triggered, but pretty sure I'm gonna agree with him.
won't charge you $27 million a year to fix your problems. How's that for cost savings there, Bob Iger? Have you noticed that a lot of movies have bombed
burn,
recently?
Bob
Fast
Iger,
X
burn.
underperformed. The
Pay your
Flash is looking
actors,
like
Bob
it'll lose
Iger.
$200 million to Warner Brothers, making it the biggest comic book movie bomb ever. Even objectively
Yep.
great films like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning 1 fell short of expectations this summer. But the biggest victim of the box office bloodbath for the last 2 years has got to be our mouse-eared overlords at Walt Disney Corp. Doctor Strange 2, Thor 3, and Black Panther 2 all came in under expectations. The Little Mermaid, vast.
Wait. Doctor Strange 2 made like close to $1 billion. I don't know if Disney ever said that came under expectations, but that's kind of insane. Thor 4 still crossed like the $700 million mark, so I don't, which that's, I think it came out around on par with Thor Ragnarok. I don't think Thor Ragnarok even made 800 million. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, that one's a little iffy because yes, I think that one came in around 800 something million, but I would argue that's actually like insanely impressive considering the fact that this is a sequel without your leading actor and without your main character, right? Like that's pretty crazy. Like can anybody name like another movie in history that just didn't have their main actor or main character and still managed to make like that much money? I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily use those movies as examples as to why Disney is in trouble, but we shall let him continue.
Vastly underperformed. Both Ant-Man 3 and the new Indiana Jones were also costly losers. No one
Yeah,
even
Ant-Man 3 and
remembers
Indiana
Disney's
Jones,
last
absolutely.
animated feature film Strange World, and Elemental had the lowest opening of any modern Pixar film ever, including Lightyear, the massive bomb that was...
True, but to be fair, Elemental has had massive legs. Like it had an awful opening weekend, but it actually opened the same weekend as The Flash, and it had like almost half of its opening weekend. It's actually pretty much doubled it because Elemental is now at a $425 million worldwide cume. So Elemental's performance has been pretty impressive. Still not good, right? It still lost Disney money, but it's actually a sign of like, okay, if you make good movies, it's like people will still come. Like Elemental, really solid movie. People and it's had pretty good word of mouth and it's had really good legs. And even when you look at the movies that he was talking about earlier, where you have like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I actually think that's a really good movie. And it almost made $1 billion, right? You look at Thor: Love and Thunder, and not quite as good. But I mean that obviously still made money. Wakanda Forever. I think Wakanda Forever is freaking great. And even again against all odds, it still made like 800 something million. So, well, I overall agree with him. I think I disagree with him on some of these particulars here.
released right before it. The long and short of all of this, things are bad at the House of Mouse right now. Disney shares are at the lowest that they've been since COVID hit back in March of 2020, and to turn it all around, they're considering selling off their TV businesses, spinning off ESPN, laying off thousands of employees. We are truly witnessing the death of the Disney empire happening in real time right now. But I think that there's a way to fix things, and the key to it all is YouTube. So grab your popcorn as I prepare to tell you a story far more compelling than anything's put out over the last few years. It's time to fix
very
Disney
curious as to what he means by that.
easy steps. But before I help a large soulless corporation earn its millions back, won't you help our small soulful corporation here earn some thousands back? You can help do that by checking out our new line of theory wear. This isn't just merch. These are actual clothes made specifically with you and your life in mind, designed to last for years and created to help you feel
Are there like treasures in the ocean?
These items are cozy,
in Minecraft
they're
now?
comfortable, but they're also fashionable. Case in point, if you love analog horror, then no-clip your way out of the back rooms and into our hazmat puffer jacket. Never before has biohazard protection been so snuggly. Then pair that puffer with the radioactive backpack to keep all your dangerous bacterial life forms safely contained as you walk the streets. Or if you're looking for some infrared realness, check out the heat map collection. Black clothing with intense pop color. Take your pick of shorts, hoodies, work jackets, even socks. And for the fashion that's truly fire, check out the new thermo-reactive tea and mug, which can both change color as they heat up.
I gotta just get back
home. All of those are a bit too loud for your closet, check out the high-res button-up. On the outside, it looks like your typical high-quality white shirt, but inside, the collar, inner button lining, and cuffs all have a
guys, go buy Matpat's merch.
High-tech circuit board design. Now, if only
I'm letting the ad run because it's his
we have
his
all
channel.
of this and more at our
I'm
brand
stealing
new
his content.
Theoryware website, which you should go check out by clicking the link in the description below or by checking out the merch shelf just below this video. Even if you don't want to buy anything, just go check out the site.
I don't have any more food.
It's really cool with
That's
some
cringe.
fun surprises hidden
Quite
inside
frankly.
of it. This year, we're just really pushing ourselves to do bigger, more interesting things in the style world, probably because we have a fashion channel now. And I think honestly that this is a
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know
what
they were
go
pushing
check out all the
with that
awesome new
fashion
fashionable
channel.
merch that we have on the website. And hey,
Listen,
who knows,
I'm all
maybe
in
one
on the
day
game
we'll open up a
theory,
theorist
okay?
store all to ourselves
I'm
at the
watching
local
all the
mall.
FNAF
Here there's quite a
videos.
few
I'm all
vacant
in on
Disney
the
locations
film
that could use some
theory
new tenants.
and
Speaking
food
of,
theory.
Let's talk more about that Disney dilemma, shall we?
I don't know about
Basically,
that.
when you break it all
I don't
down,
know about
Disney's
that fashion
problems
channel.
largely boil down to three major topics: streaming, budget, and story. So let's go through them point by point, starting with streaming. One thing that everyone tends to overlook when they first start a streaming service is that
Disney Plus, in my opinion, is like, I think it's the ultimate culprit of what's killing Disney right now. I think when it comes to their major IPs in Marvel and Star Wars, not so much Star Wars, because I guess technically, like, they're not even making any movies, so I don't even know if the problem with Star Wars is an overabundance of content. That one is mainly just the quality of the content, but in my opinion, when you look at Marvel Studios, and Kevin Feige in specifically, who is the main driving force of that, they've been very much quantity over quality, right? Where they're making as many shows as possible and as many movies as possible, and Kevin Feige simply is not able to oversee all of it and maintain a level of quality that's sufficient. I think he's being stretched thin right now, and I think that's leading to a bunch of projects falling under the radar, right? Where you have these like just terrible Disney Plus shows like Hawkeye or Loki season 1. And that bleeds into the movies as well. You know, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, not good. You have that Blade movie that it didn't go into production because they didn't have a script ready. You know, I really do feel like Disney Plus is like killing Marvel right now. And then if you look at Pixar, Disney made the just idiotic decision of putting like 3 Pixar movies in a row onto Disney Plus, and in my opinion, that's like the main reason why audiences are like, I don't need to watch Pixar movies in theaters. I could just wait for it to come out on Disney Plus. So I think that's a major factor there. Even to a certain extent, if you look at their like live action remake stuff, like I think they put like Mulan on Disney Plus, then I think they put like the whatever that like I don't remember what's the name of the dog movie where they eat the noodle and it like leads into a kiss or whatever. I don't remember. They put that on Disney Plus, like things like Peter Pan and Wendy and whatever. Because listen, you could say that the Disney Plus adaptations are bad, but like they made money. And when I look at The Little Mermaid, I'm like, that's one of the better ones, and it's only made like $500 million worldwide. I'm like, I don't know this person out there that like this like troglodyte that like thinks that Aladdin is some hot shit, but oh, Little Mermaid is it looks so bad. I can't stand watching that. Like, I feel like there's probably a bunch of people that would have gone to see The Little Mermaid if they didn't think they would be reliably able to watch it on Disney Plus, So I think that Disney Plus is like a major thing that is like actually killing Disney.
You need a steady flow of content to make it work, to keep people hooked on the platform, and making content tends to be expensive, hence the elongated merch push they just went through. But even if you thread the needle and manage to solve both of those issues, making lots of content for a relatively cheap price, it just opens a well of new issues that are more difficult to solve. Let me explain. To prevent people from bouncing off the platform, most of Disney's star studios have been relegated to content factories to feed the Disney Plus machine. In 2020, Disney held an Investor Day presentation, where they had Marvel and Lucasfilm announce 10 projects each, and Pixar announced another 6. It wasn't all streaming focused, but a whole lot of it was. In addition, the service has been flooded with Disney dipping into all its other major IPs. Live-action remakes of Peter Pan, serialized versions of High School Musical, the return of nostalgic classics like Willow, and the launch of anticipated new IP like Artemis Fowl. Disney owns some of the most beloved IP on the planet, and they've been pulling it all off the shelves to try and keep their content offering on Disney Plus robust, and most importantly, sticky, to keep all those finicky streaming audiences that are quick to cancel a subscription. Despite it being difficult and expensive to stay on that online content treadmill, at least on the surface, it looks like Disney managed to thread the needle. But in achieving that, they've actually exposed themselves to a problem that's far worse: brand dilution. There's no arguing that pretty much every single one of these cherished franchises has become significantly less special over the last 5 years, simply because there's just so much of them around at this point. Toy Story 4, Lightyear, Toy Story 5? You can only go to the pump so many times before the audience can smell a shameless cash grab. Going back to those Investor Day announcements, most of the Star Wars ones, they were quietly canceled. A completely different Episode 9, a Boba Fett solo movie, a trilogy from Rian Johnson, another trilogy from the Game of Thrones guys. When something new from Star Wars gets announced at this point, there's little trust that it's ever going to see the light of day, and even less trust that it's going to be good. Andor, for instance, it was legitimately great. Seriously, it was the single best thing that Star Wars has produced in years. But you know why no one watched it? Because it was buried under a slew of underwhelming projects like the Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, late season Mandalorian, and Episode 9. People lost trust with the brand, and as a result, deprioritized watching all the new stuff that was rolling out. The MCU is having the exact same issue right now. Look at this. Phase 1 had 746 minutes of content spread over 5 years.
He actually analyzed how many minutes of content. Oh god, I can't wait until we get to Phase 4.
Minutes spread over 3 years. And then you had Phase 3 at 1,500 minutes spread over another 3 years. That was a pretty significant jump, but it was nothing compared to Phase 4. Thanks in part to the introduction of Disney Plus and the requirement for streaming content, Phase 4 had a staggering 3,500 minutes.
Oh my god. Wow, that is insane.
Spread across only 2 years.
Whoa.
There's been more MCU content in the last 2 years than the preceding 12 combined. A Marvel release used to feel like an event.
Have you lost Medicaid or CHIP? At healthcare.gov,
that
4
is
out of 5
wild.
customers can find
That
a
is
quality
wacky.
plan for $10 or less per month with financial help. Enroll in a plan
Yeah,
today.
I mean, it's too much. It's too much, and it's like,
the US Department
honestly,
of Health
like, some people would say that, like, oh, what if it was good, then it would be okay. But it's like, I feel like even if all of this content was like amazing, I feel like it would still be too much of a good thing. It's like you need a break sometimes. You need to let things breathe, I feel like.
Services.
You had to see it. Nowadays, though, it's quite literally a weekly occurrence, so of course people are going to be less excited for new installments like Secret Invasion, regardless of their quality. Don't worry, we're going to address the quality here in a second. What's worse, in their drive to Disney Plus, the mouse has lost out on a lot of money they probably didn't need to. Looking at the list of original films created and released by Disney, so many of them are going straight to Disney Plus without making any money in a theater. This year alone, across all their studios, 6 of the 14 Disney films so far have premiered directly on Disney Plus Plus or Hulu with no additional cost. In 2022, a whopping 27 premiered on streaming and only 16 were in theaters. Now compare all that to 2018, the year before Disney Plus launched, where Disney released only 10 films total, all of which obviously went to the theaters. Not only do these streaming premieres mean that they're losing a lot of money from the theatrical window, but it becomes an even bigger issue when you combine it with our next major problem, budgeting.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're really are, like, learning that streaming is simply not the cash cow that we thought it was going to be. And it's a little scary because companies like Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount and Universal, I think Universal owns Peacock, right? They're these companies that are not like never ending like cash cows, you know? And they're now having to compete with the likes of Apple and Amazon. And it's like I think it is very realistic that we end up in a situation where we're probably only going to have Apple TV Plus, Amazon Prime, and Netflix, and maybe Disney Plus will hang in there at some point. I really do feel like a lot of these other streaming services are going to fall by the wayside because it's just not the cash cow that we thought it was going to be. I don't think that the market is going to allow for all of these different streaming services to like be sustainable to be sustainable, because it's like we can't I can't pay for all of these streaming services. I simply can't. And in a way, I think for the consumer, that'll probably end up being a good thing. Like, I would much rather live back in the world where Marvel would make content and like give it to Netflix, you know, or technically Netflix themselves produce Daredevil and whatnot. But I would much rather live in a world where all of these different studios just made content and just sold it to Netflix, you know, and I just had to pay for Netflix. And because honestly, Sony is low-key the smartest of all of these corporations. I think they saw this coming a mile away, and they were like, we don't want to do a streaming service. You guys can have your streaming services, and we will sell our content to you. Notice how Sony is like, we don't want to make a streaming service. We'll make a Last of Us show and give it to HBO Max. Max. They're like, we'll make a Twisted Metal show and we'll just sell it to Peacock. You guys can shoulder the brunt of running these streaming services, and we will allow you to pay us for our content. Like Sony gets a lot of shit, but they are low-key the smartest of all of these people.
The budgets for so many modern blockbusters, and especially those made by Disney, are just out of control. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny cost $300 million to make.
Look, listen, I did not watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but like, bro, like, as iconic as Indiana Jones is this a franchise that has ever warranted that kind of budget? I don't think it has.
Hey, Guardians 3 and the Little Mermaid, $250 million.
I will say, so, and here's the thing. Little Mermaid, I have no idea how that movie cost $250 million. Sincerely have zero clue. It simply does not look like a $250 million film. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, on the other hand, that is a beautiful film. The CGI is amazing. You can see the set design in all. I can see the $250 million spent on that movie. So, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has been one of the major hits for the studio. So, honestly, for me, it's like when I hear these gargantuan budgets, it's like, okay, if you are going to spend that much money, at least make it look like $250 million.
Each. Quantumania, a cool $200 million. They even spent $150 million on Haunted Mansion. Why would you spend $150 million?
Really? Why? That's so stupid. Wait, what?
dollars on a Haunted Mansion movie. And the true number is probably more like 300 million if you include the marketing for it. Even Disney's animation wing is insane.
Remember,
Encanto and
guys,
Strange World cost somewhere
budgets do not include marketing. You always have to factor that in.
between $135 and $180 million to make. Well, almost all of Pixar's latest releases put their budgets between $150 and $200 in range. Now, you might be looking at all those numbers and thinking, wow, that's a lot, but aren't all movies super expensive? And the answer is yes, but also no. Yeah, they cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but not that many hundreds of millions of dollars. When you look at other massive blockbusters currently in theaters, most are not looking like this. Oppenheimer had a massive cast and incredible experimental filmmaking techniques, and it cost just $100 million to make. John Wick 4, elaborate action sequences with top-tier stunt work and incredible set designs at multiple real-world locations. Also cost just $100 million. Barbie is the biggest movie of the summer. It has iconic art direct.
John Wick is actually like a really great example of a franchise that started off small and eventually, and like its sequels made more and more money each. And it eventually got to the point where it warranted a budget of that, where it was like, oh yeah, like audiences clearly enjoy these movies, we can warrant this budget. Haunted Mansion, $150 million? Pure insanity. Pure, unadulterated, unfiltered insanity.
Detailed fictional worlds with real sets and A-list actors who enjoyed being there, and it was made for less than $150 million. Over on the animation side, the newly released Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie cost $70 million, while Puss in Boots: The Last...
By the way, go watch Ninja Turtles, please. I'd really like that, because I want that movie to do well, because I really liked it, and I want it to have sequels and whatnot, so go watch TMNT. Okay. Thank you for my TED Talk.
Wish and Across the Spider-Verse and the Super Mario Brothers movie were all at about $100 million each. All of these are half to a third of what Disney is paying to make their movies. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that it's a lot easier to get back what you put in when you're only $70 million in the hole as opposed to $200 million. All of this begs the question of why though? Why are these movies so expensive? Well, it's complicated and it ultimately comes down to a lot of different factors. An over-reliance on CGI, a push to develop new technologies, writing that just doesn't keep budgets in mind. But one of the biggest contributors to the inflation of a movie's budget over at Disney that a lot of people don't talk about are reshoots. A reshoot is where a film brings back the cast and crew to refilm scenes
I mean,
that didn't work.
That's been a thing of... Yeah, I mean, are we saying that those other movies didn't have the same amount of reshoots? Okay, I mean, I haven't looked into this.
Film new scenes that become needed as they get into the editing process. Don't get me wrong, reshoots are a perfectly normal part of production, and they can really help bring a movie together. A lot of very successful films have had reshoots. Back to the Future, E.T., Rocky, that's not the sort of stuff I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is when a movie studio sees the rough cut of a movie, gets cold feet, and then suddenly decides they basically need to start over from scratch.
Sure.
Probably the most famous example of this was with Zack Snyder's Justice League, but
Oh,
Disney,
God.
they too have been guilty of this a lot lately. Most publicly with Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Yep.
Originally, that movie was directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the two guys behind Spider-Verse and the Lego Movie. But Disney didn't like what they saw, and so they hired Ron Howard to reshoot an estimated 80% of the movie, thereby doubling its budget to somewhere around $300 million. Now, as we all know, Solo did not do super well. It only grossed about $400 million worldwide. A number that suddenly becomes a lot less painful to look at if your original budget was just $125 million. But all the streaming and budgeting changes in the world are going to be useless if they continue to fail at our third main point, story. So many Disney films lately have been failing at making a story that's both worth telling and that audiences want to hear. Disney keeps hoping that you can still slap a brand name onto something and it'll sell, but that just doesn't work anymore. Audiences aren't stupid. They can tell when a story is being told just because the bean counters think it's going to make money. Like, who asked for Zootopia 2, Frozen 3, Inside Out 2, Toy Story 5?
To be fair, I'm pretty sure a lot of people asked for
movies that are
Zootopia 2.
happening in the near future, even though it feels like that list should be a parody. But making unnecessary sequels is just the tip of the iceberg. Disney also doesn't understand where their stories fit anymore. Look no further than The Eternals, which introduced a dozen new characters and 10,000 years of backstory.
Okay. Can we stop saying that, like, when you dislike a movie? I could have sworn that, like, you could just, like, equip a shield without having to go in your menu. Am I wrong about that? Let me know in the comments below. I don't care about your opinions on Disney, okay? Give me Minecraft tips. Okay, but I really hate this. I really hate it when like a movie comes out or like and is bad, and people are like, "Oh, they should have just made a Disney Plus series about it." It's like, no. Sometimes you just made a bad movie. It's like it happens. That doesn't mean that you have to go out and make a Disney Plus series about it. Okay, look at the X-Men movies. Those movies had plenty of characters, and at least the first two, they were able to do it just fine. They could have made an Eternals movie that was better. They just didn't do it well.
Story into a 2-hour film. Why wasn't this a Disney Plus series that could have given the concept time to breathe?
Probably because it would have been way too expensive also to do on a Disney Plus. And it would have looked like poopy.
Meanwhile, they're clearly stretching out stories that don't need to be TV shows. The Obi-Wan series is a great example of this.
No, hold on. To be fair, you know what? I'm gonna call my own self out there. Obi-Wan, this is something that I've had to grapple with because I've said this a lot. I've been saying it's like, oh man, they need to stop making these 6-episode Disney Plus series. But it's like a little bit. I feel like I also have to rein myself back in because it's like, no, you can do 6-episode like event television series or whatever, because there's actually a lot of British TV that tends to be like maybe like 3 to 6 episodes a season. That like the British do that a lot, and so it totally can work. They're just not making good content. Like there's just something going on there at Disney that is just not there's not on their A game. Me personally, I think I think they're just stretching themselves out too thin. That's my opinion. That's like the primary reason why a lot of these shows are bad. But I need to rein myself back in. It's not the 6 episodes. It's not like it's not that. It's just that they're not their resources are limited and their creative resources are limited, and I feel like they're like A people. They're like really good creatives over there are just like Kevin Feige. They're just not able to make this much content. And by the way, when you look at like Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy should not be in charge of Lucasfilm. I mean, that's just clear.
There was a really strong core narrative there about Obi-Wan's relationship to Vader that ultimately got buried under the bloatware of side quests and subplots. And hey, wouldn't you know it, Obi-Wan was originally written to be a 2-hour film.
Although that's fair. When you look at how what somebody's gonna be. Oh, it was a creeper. Yeah, that point is fair. Obi-Wan was originally supposed to be a movie. I think taking a movie script and just shoddily turning it into a series, that is definitely not something that you should do. So that's fair. But I think just looking at Eternals, which was conceived to be a film, and deciding that, that should just be a series. It's like, no, that it was just a bad movie. And by the way, I like Eternals, but if you didn't like it, then it was just a bad movie. Doesn't necessarily need to be stretched out into a series, because then you're just essentially creating an entirely new thing.
Decided to turn into a 6-hour series. If you want a super recent example, Secret Invasion, which, man, I have no idea what Marvel was thinking on this one. Let's take this iconic storyline from the comics with an Avengers-level threat and adapt it into a spy thriller with basically no spying, no thrills, and no Avengers. What should have been this amazing tentpole moment in the Avengers line of films, I mean, who doesn't love themselves a good imposter storyline, became yet another piece of wasted potential content to further dilute the MCU brand on Disney+. And again, here's the...
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I have a bit of a weird relationship with Secret Invasion, because I think it's, like, pretty good. Like, again, it's like, it's not, like, I don't think it's so good that I'll ever, like, defend it, necessarily, from people, because it's like, I will defend Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I will defend Miss Marvel. I really like Miss Marvel. I'm never going to sit here and defend Secret Invasion, because it is pretty like mid, but it's like it's good. Like I don't mind it. I also don't agree necessarily that with like I will never take criticism seriously when the basis of the criticism is it's different from the source material. Like, that to me is a very silly way of looking at a piece of media. Whoops, let me reset my camera. Like, when you're adapting something and it's different from the source material, it just becomes its own thing. And I will never look at a piece of source material, or I'll never look at a piece of media and be like, oh, that's different from the thing that I know, so it's bad. Like, if it's different from the source material, I'll just look at it as its own thing. And as its own thing, Secret Invasion isn't great, but, like, I think it's a lot better than, like, Loki or Hawkeye or Moon Knight, you know. But I don't know, that's just me.
Problem when you start dumping out a lot of content all at once just to keep us on the digital treadmill. People start to see patterns. They see the trends, the formulas that you're using. For example, why have so many big tentpole Disney releases lately had a main character becoming jaded just because they lost a loved one? It happened with Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Indiana Jones, Obi-Wan Kenobi, heck, even Haunted Mansion and Secret Invasion, which you probably shouldn't know because why would you ever bother to see those things? This generation of stories has seen our fictional heroes become miserable. And let's be real, that is not something that fans want to see. We fell in love with these characters.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, this is all, like, very, like, obviously subjective. And yeah, I mean, people obviously aren't responding to them. Is it necessarily that they don't like seeing older characters that are kind of jaded? Maybe, but I mean, it's not really what, like, a lot of, like, most of the MCU Disney Plus shows aren't about that. So I don't know that that's the answer, because if you made a movie about a jaded character that is good, I think people would still respond well to it, you know. If you look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, for example, Chris Pratt, he's not old necessarily, but he is jaded in that movie because he lost a loved one, and that was a phenomenal movie that everybody liked. So I don't know that necessarily the choice of story is what's wrong. It's the execution. It's not necessarily the conceptual basis that I think is the problem here. It's just the execution of said story.
Characters for a reason. They inspired us for a reason. Seeing them crushed under the same depression of reality that we real people face every day is not fun. Sure, it might be more realistic to see a disillusioned Indiana Jones, but audiences go to the movies to escape from reality, to believe in something better, something greater, to have something to hope for and aspire to. And Disney is no longer providing those hopeful messages. So that's a lot of doom and gloom, right? Is there any way that Disney, and really the entire film industry, can fix all these issues? Well, yeah, actually. All you gotta do, treat it like a YouTube channel. What I mean to say is that they need to program their slate of movies just like you do a YouTube channel. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here, loyal theorists.
I would actually like this secret.
Time thinking about what theories we put up across all the different channels, with multiple weekly meetings trying to figure out what would work best where, planning out when things should go up, and what videos complement each other, all for the overall health of the business. You can't just throw up a video willy-nilly and hope everything goes well these days. No, you need to make sure that you have solid videos here and there to keep the system and your viewers happy. And everything we talked about today with Disney are things that regularly come up in our day-to-day conversations about how to run things here at Theorist. First of all, we have a quality bar that episodes just have to hit. Otherwise, they're not going to get made. Our primary metric in the success or failure of a video isn't revenue, it's actually you, the community. Could we make more money by pumping out more episodes every week? Probably. But in the process, we would burn you out, and by necessity, dilute the show as we greenlight worse and worse episodes. See, in YouTube analytics, they give you a handy little chart ranking your most recent releases from 1 to 10 in terms of how well it's performing. Well, ideally, every upload you do is going to be a 1 out of 10. That's just not realistic to have that sort of expectation. In the end, something is inevitably going to be a 10 out of 10. And if you're good at what you do, you know when those 9s and 10s are going to hit, and so you have to surround that low performer with stuff that you know is going to do well. Otherwise, you risk taking L after L after L, and you start making a narrative about how bad your stuff is now, how much it's fallen off, or worse, the algorithm decides that people no longer care about your channel. Apply this concept to Disney and you immediately see what they have to do with their IP. When you have back-to-back-to-back-to-back disappointments performance lineup, like in Marvel's recent roster, it creates a downward spiral that's pretty hard to break in the public consciousness. But if you mix in one or two goods with the bad strategically, suddenly it's much harder to craft a doom and gloom narrative. Here's an example programming lineup. Multiverse of Madness, Wakanda Forever, Guardians 3, Love and Thunder, Quantumania. That looks a lot different from what really happened, where Guardians 3 appeared at the end. The real release order gave you 4 disappointments in a row before.
I mean, this is all like good to know conceptually, but like when they're making these movies, they want all of these to be good. It's like I guess it is what he's saying. If I'm trying to understand maybe what he's saying, is he saying that like at some point during production, they should be able to recognize that Guardians is the good movie of the 3, and that they should have shuffled release dates? Maybe that's what he's saying? Because I guess what I'm saying is that it's really hard to plan for that for that kind of release schedule when you're making giant blockbuster films, you know? Like it's a lot easier to do that on like YouTube videos, because YouTube videos take a lot less effort and you can plan them out easier. And you finish them easier, and you know that they're good, and you know you can kind of tell. It's a lot. I feel like it's a lot harder to tell that when it comes to movies, but I don't know. We'll let him keep going.
Before you got a small pick-me-up with the generally well-received Guardians. But if Guardians had been in the middle, the disappointments are suddenly broken up. There's a gap there. The lackluster movies on either side of it, it's just a franchise coasting along waiting for the next big event. In fact, I could make this programming lineup even better if Wakanda Forever had actually been first in the list. The mediocre performance of Wakanda actually was made significantly worse by the disappointment of Multiverse of Madness that came directly before. Had it come before Doctor Strange, that movie would have been saddled with all the extra scrutiny of, is Marvel losing its way? If Wakanda Forever isn't good, it means it's the end of Marvel, thereby leading to a different cultural conversation around it. Release order matters when it comes to shaping the narrative around your brand, and it matters a lot. The same thing holds true for any experimental episodes. Disney needs to be making films about new IP, like Pixar's Elio, or lesser-known characters like Marvel's Moon Knight. But obviously, those projects are going to be risky, so you balance that risk out by putting them between other projects you expect to do well. Your Toy Story 5s, your Avengers, your Guardians. This accomplishes 3 things all at once. You mitigate your risk.
I mean, I'd have to look at their release schedule, but I feel like, are they not making all of these things? Like they're making Miss Marvel, you know, Eternals we talked about earlier. That's a new IP. I feel like they are making, they're making plenty of like new IP. Like a lot of Pixar movies are original. Right, we talked about Eternals and whatnot. I don't know. I feel like a lot of this is more just is of his argument here. I don't know if I necessarily agree with. I really do think at the end of the day it's just the quality that they have to get better. But yeah, maybe a lot of maybe
quote unquote cash grabs.
Maybe the release schedule could be a thing to take into consideration.
And you potentially find your next explosive IP. Again, let's look at film theory for an example. On this channel, we have a few relatively sure things. Our tentpole programming, analog horror, Spider-Man, nostalgic kids shows. And knowing that, we're able to put the stuff that we're...
Is Spider-Man a reliable thing? Just like that specific character? That's interesting.
Not sure about between them. And then if something surprises you and it does manage to explode, bam, you have yourself a new strong subject to slot other unknowns in between. That is literally what happened to us with the Backrooms. We weren't sure how that one was gonna do, and it ended up doing gangbusters, with people wanting more and more of our analysis videos while they wear their new absurdly comfortable theory wear hazmat puffer jackets. The gamble paid off, and it paid off in a big way, but we also know that we can't release too many of those things in too quick of succession. We can't release a Backrooms theory every single week, because even though they'll do well, people will eventually stop caring if we do too much, and they'll stop coming back because we're no longer adding anything to the conversation. Does that sound familiar, Star Wars? How about you, Marvel? Can you relate? Just in general,
I mean, that's true. That is
channel,
true.
You gotta know.
That is true. Like they are doing too much. But again, I also do feel like they do plenty of original things. Like I feel like Disney does do plenty of original things. Maybe not. I guess to be fair, maybe they don't do plenty of original like live action things, but um but I mean they well to be okay let me organize my thoughts a bit better. They do plenty of like new Marvel IP. They do plenty of original animated movies, but sure, I guess they don't do as much original live action stuff.
What episode ideas are going to work best as shorts and which ones merit a full video. We don't try to take something that's clearly a short and then bloat it into a full 15-minute video, or vice versa. Just like Disney shouldn't be looking at something that's clearly an hour-and-a-half movie and trying to turn it into a 10-episode miniseries just so they get more watch minutes on their streaming app. Content needs to fit where it tells the best story. Lastly, in terms of our budgeting, we have to make sure that an episode can make back the money that we're spending on making it, paying the writers and editors that are working on it, and we budget it just based on the AdSense we expect to make from that video. Anything extra that we get from brand deals or merch sales or whatever is a nice plus. It allows us to expand the team, to do more ambitious projects. But we can't budget every single video that way because eventually we're gonna lose that bet and we can't run the business anymore. Think of our AdSense like your box office, Disney. Sure, every now and then we could do a more expensive video, something that takes a bit more time, or just invest in a passion project. That's gonna be maybe a once or twice a year thing, not an every release thing. Disney, you can't keep releasing $300 million movie after $300 million movie without knowing that you're gonna earn that back at the box office. Budget according to what you know you're gonna earn in the theaters. That way, all the ancillary stuff, that's all gravy. Anything you earn on top of that, boom, it's a bonus. You became that much more profitable. You know what's gonna help with that? Fixing your reshoot issue. Let me tell you, as I was researching this episode, just as someone running a media company, my jaw hit the floor when I saw how often companies like Disney are doing reshoots that majorly overhaul the movie. How are you rolling on day one without having a clear vision that the writers, directors, producers, and studio have all agreed to? At Theorist, we don't do an episode unless all of our senior creative team are on the same page about what that episode's gonna be. And more importantly, when we work with brands, we require that every single stakeholder review and lock the script before shooting begins. That way, no one can ask for a last-minute change. We learned early that those reshoots and re-edits cost a fortune, killing our process. But by forcing everyone to get on the same page early, even if it's painful and slows the process down
if
at
I
the
get
beginning,
if
it
I get
saves
hit
so
with
much
a
time, money, and a ton
while I'm
of
blocking, I
headaches
still
on
get
other,
the
much more
the
expensive
effect.
end
That's
of the
lame.
production process.
It's cringe.
All in all, in their desperate bid to try to catch up to Netflix with their streaming service, throwing money at their problems in hopes that they'll go away, Disney lost sight of what made entertainment work since the very beginning. Making what you can, making what you're good at, keeping it on budget, and telling a story that's worth telling. And if we here on YouTube can do it, they have no excuse. Or if they can't get their act together, maybe the death of Disney was ultimately for the best. But hey, remember, go check out that new line of theory wear. Again, I cannot stress enough just how much work went into all these items, because we wanted this to be more than just your typical YouTuber merch, like, oh, just slap the logo on it. No, these are actual clothing items that have high quality fabrics, expert details, and stuff that's gonna make you feel incredible when you wear it. So please, do me a favor, go check out all the cool stuff that we made.
Yeah, go
by
check
heading on
out his
over to our
merch, 'cause
Theory
I'm
Wear website.
stealing his
Links in the
content.
description below, or maybe it's on screen right now. I don't
Go
know, maybe
check it
through the
out.
magic of editing, we can make that happen.
Go do that.
And as always, my friends, until next time, remember, it's all just a theory. A film theory.
Okay, overall, I think I agree with like most of what he's saying there. Like I agree with the budgeting thing. Like those budgets need to be cut down a ton. I think that movies like Indiana Jones just probably do not warrant that big of a budget. The Little Mermaid definitely doesn't warrant that big of a budget. Even a lot of these animated movies maybe don't need to cost that much. Then again, I think some of what he's talking about where he's like, oh, you have to do your surefire hits. It's like, well, to be fair, Wakanda Forever and Thor: Love and Thunder, those were hits. Those were surefire hits. They just weren't quite as good as they maybe should have been. Like it's not like I guess maybe on the Disney Plus side of things you do have a lot of these new IP, but again, you can do like Marvel was at Marvel was at a position where their quality was so good that they could do new IP and it would be fine. Now they are at a position where their quality has suffered a bit, so especially if a new Marvel IP comes out, people are not immediately going to gravitate towards it. So I don't know that it's necessarily like their release order is what's wrong here. Yes, I agree with him that it is good to have 2 mediocre movies, then a banger movie, then 2 more mediocre movies. Like that's less bad, but that's at the end of the day, that's not something that you can necessarily schedule. Like, you shouldn't be scheduling mediocrity. You should be trying to make the best content that you can at all times. And I believe that in Disney's position right now, that has to come from scaling back the amount of content that you're making. But so I think I agree with him that they need to lower their budgets. They need to rein in these stories. I disagree that it's because of just the premise of the stories. I don't necessarily think that the problem with a lot of the Star Wars content is that it's about an old hero, being old and jaded. I didn't watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but I highly doubt that that's the problem with that movie. I don't think it's the problem with a lot of this stuff because, again, I'll just point to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Peter Quill in that movie is a jaded hero. To a certain extent, Rocket Raccoon is also a jaded hero. That movie was incredible. So the premise isn't the problem, it's the quality. And the quality dipping stems from, in my opinion, the creatives being just way too stretched out. Like, they can't make this much content feasibly. So I honestly think that Disney should just relegate Disney Plus to being primarily just hey, you come here for like our like, oh gosh, sorry, I'm getting hit in Minecraft. Oh, what? Polar bear. Okay, you guys can't see this, but I'm currently being chased by polar bears. What the heck? I thought these guys were like docile. What are we even talking about? What is happening? Oh gosh, they are coming. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna quit. Okay, sorry. What am I saying? I have no idea what I was saying. Yeah. Again, they just have to cut back on the amount of content that they're making in order to do the quality over the quantity, and the budgets as well. Like, yes, it's like I was saying before, it is better to release a mediocre thing than a good thing, than a mediocre thing, instead of 3 mediocre things in a row. But I don't know if it's feasible to plan for that necessarily. I think it's a lot easier to do that on like film theory, where taking a video doesn't take 3 years, so you can make a bunch of videos and then see which ones are going to hit better than others. It's a lot harder to do that on film. So I don't actually agree that you can necessarily apply that to filmmaking. But yeah, overall, good video. I think I agree with most of it. Yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.